All right, guys, we back at it. So Donald Trump receiving a $400 million gift from Qatar, a luxury jet. You know, everybody's having mixed opinions about this. Like, oh, Trump's being awarded a, you know, he's being gifted a $400 million jet for his visit. You know, obviously the president only can travel on Air Force One. Is this going to be Air Force One certified? What's going on? And, you know, this comes after there's high tensions in the Middle East. There's a quote-unquote media narrative that there's some sort of rift between Netanyahu and Trump, which I highly doubt. You know, I think Trump's trying to create this narrative that he's cut off Netanyahu and he wants to go around Israel and negotiate with the Arab states in order to secure that bag, right? So he wants to secure the $1 trillion investment deals coming from Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these people. So they really need to watch out for that, because right when he secures that, you know, he's gonna surprisingly reconcile with Netanyahu, and we're best buddies now. We got to bomb Iran. So because guys, no U.S. president has ever turned their back on Israel. Like that's immediate suicide, right? So a lot of people have been having mixed opinions. One of which is the weird-faced Laura Loomer, guys. So she's guys, from the past 2 weeks, we've been noticing she has way more pull in the Trump administration than we thought. I mean, she's fired 6 people in the Trump administration, you know, which is strange because she's not a publicly elected official. We all know her as an influencer. So how does she have that much power in the Trump administration, right? So she writes, I love President Trump. I would take a bullet for him, but I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a $400 million gift from jihadists in suits. The Qataris fund the same Iranian proxies and Hamas and Hezbollah, who have murdered U.S. service members, the same proxies that have worked with the Mexican cartels to get jihadists to cross our border. This is really going to be such a stain on the administration if this is true, and I say that as someone who would take a bullet for Trump. I'm so disappointed. She's lying out of her fucking teeth. She wouldn't take a fucking bullet for Trump. She's just trying to. She's a shill for you know who, right? She's on salary with a certain lobby, and she apparently has more power than Trump, guys, because she already fired 6 of his officials because she claimed she didn't trust them. But you know, it's interesting how she says the Qataris fund these proxies, and you know, she always wants to leave out how the CIA funds ISIS, Al Qaeda, and all the other proxies. The CIA is the ultimate funder, right? Always wants to leave that out, that prick.
Until he leaves office in January 2029, when ownership will be transferred to the foundation overseeing his yet-to-be-built presidential library. The gift is expected to be announced when Trump visits Qatar as part of his trip to the Middle East, his first major foreign trip, which he's scheduled to leave for tomorrow. Moments ago, the White House responded that any gift given by a foreign government is always accepted in full compliance with all applicable laws. President Trump's administration is committed to full transparency. The Qatari government put out their own statement disputing the reporting, saying the matter is still under review and that a decision has not yet been made. There are already some chuckles at this table.
They're trying to manifest it into existence.
Okay. Jeremy, what do you make of what's being called this like floating palace in the sky?
Well, I think this is a classic example of the way that Trump has completely blurred the lines between public responsibility and the presidency and his personal private gain. And you've seen this time and time again, whether it is having events, official events at his golf courses, right, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, I believe, in some cases. You see it all, even in his keeping of certain documents, right? Like, remember, the whole raid at Mar-a-Lago was because he kept government documents. They belong to the government, not to a president. And he refused to give those up because he treats the whole presidency as if it is his office and not the American people's. So why wouldn't he then assume that the presidential jet belongs to him and not the American people? So it sounds like if this goes through, which, there's some open questions there, that he's going to hang on to this after his presidency. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I wasn't really surprised. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been more of an effort to explain this in a way that said that, but from the White House, other than this hypothetical statement of, oh, these gifts are always accepted, everything is above board, just trust us.
This is my question. I know it's kind of naive at this point to ask, is this legal? But is this legal? I mean,
do they not need congressional approval?
We have an emoluments clause. If I try to take out a civil servant to lunch, I think they can't accept more than $20 or $25, some de minimis thing. Like, how is it that the president can accept a $400?
Well, that's what I say. Anyone who's worked for government, which I have at multiple levels, a $25, $50 lunch is something that you've got to be able to explain to somebody.
Right.
So the fact that the president is getting a tricked out plane from another country, and to your point, he's going to take it with him once he's left the White House. That means that has nothing to do with the American people. This is really just about him. And I think about this, people talk about prosperity gospel. This is like prosperity politics, right? That as long as he's doing well and the body sees him doing well, then the body's going to be good. And that's just not the way it works. That sort of trickle down sort of wealth, that's never happened in the history of our country. And so you get the sense that, well, this is really just about him. And this is why I think it's so important for Democrats to just constantly keep putting their, paying attention to this and pointing this out. He's going to keep doing this and sort of the accretion of all this wealth and favor. But what happens to the ordinary person? What happens to the grassroots family on the ground that voted for him because they thought he was going to make their life better?
I kind of keep coming back to this question about why. Why does Donald Trump need to do this, right? I take away the foreign governments. Foreign governments are always going to try to find ways to have influence with American politicians for whatever interests they may have. But I come back to why the United States' president feels that he needs to accept a gift of this magnitude, if he is going to accept it, from a foreign government, a government that just, I would probably say 9 years ago, he was out there at the White House supporting a blockade against in 2016 when the Saudis and the Emiratis and others led this blockade against Qatar. Well, he supported it. Yeah. And then somebody seems like they got to him and they're like, wait a minute, Mr. President, you do know that we have Central Command is there. We have a huge Air Force presence there. We do all of our Middle East operations out of there. Might not be a good idea to put him under a blockade or support the blockade.
So I have zero questions about why Donald Trump is willing to accept these gifts. I think he just likes to accumulate stuff and likes to have people sucking up to him. What do the other countries expect to get in exchange for it, right? Like, we have seen that there is a push from the U.S. government to try to get countries to adopt Starlink, for example. Elon Musk's Starlink, internet satellite service, in exchange for reducing tariffs. So in that case, I understand what the other countries are hoping to get out of the exchange. But for Qatar, for the Saudis, what do you think they're asking for?
Here's a fun
What are we giving up?
Do you know which international carrier is the first to use Starlink on their planes? Qatar Airways. So that's they announced that, I think, not too long ago. So and I think it's operational on some flights already. But I think it's when these countries are looking for their own self-interest, they see, and certainly from that part of the world, they see a president who knows how to talk their language, and their language is business. Transactional deals, your interest, my interest, let's get this thing done. So I think you hear that from all of the kind of unofficial statements that we're hearing right now. People want access to the United States for technology, whether it's chips, what have you. They also want that security umbrella that the United States for a long time has always provided the Gulf region, particularly in the face of a threat from Iran. Now the U.S. is negotiating with the Iranians, so who knows, that may be a factor in some of these talks as well.
Is there not also, though, a serious national security concern here?
I have to think so.
Wouldn't you imagine they would be bugging that plane?
Yeah,
while they're tricking it out right now.
You said, right, bugging the plane, and as you talk about Starlink and other air and foreign airlines using it, I'm like, well, let me turn my, I'm not even going to connect to the internet while I'm on the plane, right?
What are you going to do on the plane for 14 hours flying to that part of the world?
You know what? Worry.
That's a good question, a very good point, because the whole reason Trump is looking at other planes to serve as Air Force One is because the Boeing plane that was supposed to be built for the next president is delayed, right? The reason it's delayed, according to Boeing, is because of security concerns. They have to have people of a certain security clearance working on that plane, or else who knows what can happen, what could be compromised. So, yeah.
And it's not good. Boeing's state safety standards, I mean, given everything that we've seen happen over the last year, if they are telling you
he get a voucher
this needs to be slow-rolled, I think you should listen.
I was wondering if he gets a voucher and he just goes to the boat.
All right, man. So, yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of concerns with this whole him accepting a jet from Qatar, apparently, guys, because, you know, from the U.S. perspective, Qatar is viewed as like the host, a country that hosts like different organizations within the Middle East, them classified by the U.S. as terrorist or not. They hosted a lot of different people for negotiations, and there's like this network of funding that goes from Qatar, Iran, the CIA, Mossad, everyone's kind of involved in it to prop up regimes and organizations throughout the Middle East and abroad, right? So Qatar has always been vilified, but really it's a place where everyone kind of meets at and negotiates, you know, certain things that happen. And so they host a bunch of different varying people. But, you know, now obviously the Western media is going to pick that up and be like, oh, well, you know, they fund X, Y, and Z, and they're involved with these people, and they have an office for these type of people and in the country, and so why is he dealing with these people? Because, well, there's a lot of, you know, trade and investments, and there's a, you know, big impactful relationship between these countries and America, you know, monetarily, investments wise, a whole host of different things, right? So I don't know, you know, this is just, again, the media is just trying to find something to report on, guys.